gather together and and call this 2025 inaugural Municipal Planning Commission meeting to order. There's no vacancies around the MPC tables, so no need for excuses or excused. Minutes of our last meeting are in the agenda package. How do you wish to handle them? Lynette has a plan.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor of Lynette's motion? That's carried. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Seeing none, a motion to accept. Dan moves to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor of Dan's motion? That is carried. Thank you. Subdivision 6.1. Maria, welcome.
Thank you. This subdivision application 2024-0-007 is to subdivide a 3.2 acre parcel from the northwest of 142117, and it contains an existing farmstead. The proposed subdivision is in Division 6, 12 kilometers east of the town of Bazzano. Access to the proposed subdivision and the remnant parcel is from Range Road 17-2. The lands are located approximately 0.4 kilometers north of Highway 550. The proposed subdivision will include a house, garage, an old house, and a shed. The house is serviced by a septic tank for wastewater and regional water for potable water. The old house is abandoned and not used for residential purposes. The other house on the property has a valid development permit, and all of the development on the proposed parcel will meet the required setbacks to the newly proposed property lines. There are no noted wetlands and no environmentally or historically significant areas to contend with or abandoned wells. Alberta Transportation indicated that no variances are required, and so they are okay with the approval of the subdivision. Alberta Health Services has no concerns. Pioneer Gas did indicate that the current gas meter is on the shop, which is north of the proposed subdivision, and so they are requesting that the applicant separate the gas account, I guess, or have a new gas meter installed for the proposed subdivision. And the EID has their standard conditions. Fortis has indicated that no easements are required, and there were no comments from adjacent landowners or required referrals, or except for as mentioned. So it is recommended that this subdivision be approved with the conditions that all outstanding property taxes be paid, that the applicant supplies copies of any utility right-of-ways, plans, or easements that are required, that any conditions of Pioneer Gas be satisfied prior to the finalization of the subdivision, and if required, the applicant enter into a development agreement. Municipal reserve for this subdivision is not applicable, as this is considered the first parcel out of the subdivision, of the quarter section. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Maria. Just so you know, I'm very familiar with this quarter. I lived there for 5 years in the old house that is abandoned. Yeah, so back in high school days. And then my mother and father built the subdivision that's just south of the yellow line. So that was my area where I grew up in high school. So the abandoned house is old. Yes. The other house that is there is probably an early 90s build. It was a dairy farm when my dad bought it, and dairy farming is a tough business. Yeah, so bought it from Connie Monroe. She was a school teacher in Bazzano School. Adina.
I'm just curious about this building to the right. Is it, looks kind of like a trailer or something? Is it occupied, or is that?
Maria?
That's a good question. I asked about that because it's not indicated on this survey sketch, and this has been removed. It's no longer there, and assessment went out and confirmed that.
Thank you. Dan?
Just had a question of curiosity about the gas co-op, and is that a standard thing that we would force on folks?
Maria?
Yes, in this case, it would be, because when Pioneer Gas originally serviced this location, it was all one parcel, one owner. Now, because there's the opportunity for two separate owners, it is important that they both have their own gas meter. So it would be fairly standard to require that separation.
And I think also full disclosure to the new buyers as well, right? So they know that that's going to be needed, whether it's supplied by the sellers or the buyers. Depends on the agreement. Yeah. Ellen?
Now, the old house does obviously not need a permit then? Or did it have one?
Yes, Maria.
Because of the age of the old house, and I did inquire with assessment about it, and I don't remember the age, but it was constructed prior to the land use bylaw, so no development permit would have been granted for that, so it would be considered legal non-conforming.
Okay. How do you wish? Holly?
So when people put up a new house, they're required to remove the old one to ensure no one lives in it, I believe is what we tell people. So in this case, it's abandoned. So is there a line that you say you have to get rid of the house and when you don't?
Go ahead, Maria.
There are, it has been that two houses can be on a property. So the old house doesn't necessarily need to be removed. It would be the decision of MPC at that time. So in this case, when the new house was built, MPC would have been given all the information for what was on that parcel, and they would have approved this as a second dwelling. So there are other times when the application isn't for a second dwelling, it's for a dwelling, and then at that time the applicant says we're moving, or we're getting rid of this other house. So it's really kind of applicant driven, and also depending on how many houses are permitted on a parcel and how that land is zoned to kind of indicate the route forward.
How do you wish, Lynette?
I would move to approve this subdivision with the conditions laid out.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. 6.2.
Thank you. Subdivision application 2024-0-010 is to subdivide out a 10.33 acre parcel containing 2 dwellings, a shop, barn, and several sheds. The proposed subdivision is located in Division 10, 8 kilometers north of the city of Brooks. The parcel is located within 1.6 kilometers of Highway 873. Access to the proposed parcel will be from Township Road 20-0. Access to the remnant parcel is also from the Township Road as well as Range Road 14-5. The house on the east side of the proposed parcel is serviced by a septic field. The septic field setbacks meet the requirements of the private septic disposal system regulation. The house on the west side of the proposed parcel is serviced by an open discharge system, which will not meet the Alberta Safety Code standard with the newly proposed property lines. The system will require alterations to ensure that it meets the Alberta Safety Code standard. The residences are both serviced by the rural water line for potable water. Each residence have approved development permits, and the remaining developments meet the setbacks of the land use bylaw to the newly proposed property lines. There are no noted wetlands and no environmentally or historically significant areas within the parcel. There are no abandoned wells. There is a noted confined feeding operation. However, there is no actual CFO development in an adjacent quarter section. Alberta Transportation has indicated they will grant a variance to Section 18 and 19 and grant approval of the subdivision should MPC wish. Alberta Health Services provided their standard comments. The Eastern Irrigation District also has their standard comments and requirements, and there were no comments or objections from adjacent landowners or internal departments. It is recommended that this subdivision be approved with conditions that all outstanding property taxes be paid, utility right-of-ways, easements, or agreements be submitted to the county prior to finalization, that the current PSDS system be altered to meet so that it meets the Alberta Safety Code Act, and that the applicant enter into a development agreement with the county. There is a reserve requirement for this subdivision as it does not meet the sections of 663 of the MGA. So there are two options: that money in place of land be provided as per policy in the amount of $10,846.50, which is 10% of the land value of $10,500 per acre. The other option would be that the 10% municipal reserve requirement be deferred by caveat on the newly created parcel. The recommendation for this MR is that money be in place of land at the $10,846.50. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Questions on this subdivision application, Neil?
Yeah, what does the caveat mean as far as the reserve goes?
Yep, Maria.
Too quick. So if a caveat is decided rather than taking money in place of land, then the 10.33 acres will be put on title as a caveat, saying that in the event that this is subdivided further, the Municipal Planning Commission can take that money at that time. So the option is you could put it on the remnant parcel, the 58.73 acres, or the proposed subdivision. That's at council's discretion. And then it just sits on title until development happens in the future.
Neil?
So does the amount grow by any percent, or would it be in 20 years still $10,000?
That amount would grow as the land value increases, assuming it increases, I suppose. So the policy in MGA is that a municipality can take 10% of the value of the land to be subdivided. So in this case, 10.33 acres is being subdivided. Right now, our policy says that any irrigated land outside of an IDP area is valued at $10,500 per acre. If that's deferred, then that 10.33 acres will be placed on that land, and then in 5, 10, 20 years, that 10.33 acres will be put through the policy of that time. So the options could be that MPC defer it again, that they take payment or take payment at that time. So if this 10.33 acres is subdivided in 20 years into two parcels, then MPC could take that as cash.
Neil,
What if it isn't subdivided?
then
It just continues on, like this caveat could go 100 years that way.
yep.
Yeah, I think we're losing a little bit of money on this one.
Policy has typically been that we don't take caveat, that we keep the backside of the title as clear as we can. That's been policy in many cases. Arno?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could you just speak to the philosophy or the basis? I mean, on some of these, we've advised not to take the municipal reserve and just to hold it. In this case, you're recommending that we take the cash. Can you just speak to that a little bit? I think for everyone's clarity on thinking.
Sure. So the policy says that MPC should take money in place of land. So that should is fairly steadfast in that you should take it. However, there has been instances where if the subdivision is so large and the reserve payment is so large that it doesn't make sense for that subdivision to go through. However, the intent of the subdivision is to allow for succession planning, or the property lines of the subdivision make sense on that land. It is MPC's ability to defer. Another recent instance was the subdivision was for agricultural purposes to subdivide land that was split by Highway 1, or in other cases it's a canal. So that is kind of a natural split. It's not for residential purposes. In that case, it maybe doesn't make sense, or it maybe makes sense to defer so that you could collect the money at a time that the land is valued at a higher rate. But again, it's really at the discretion of Municipal Planning Commission. The policy says should.
Okay, thank you.
How do you wish to go forward? Holly?
My question was to transportation. I didn't understand what was non-compliance in section 18 and 19, if that was that relevant to us.
Maria?
It's not, it is relevant in the fact that the municipality needs to ensure that they're not creating disruptions to traffic and granting access off of highways that may disturb or negatively affect the general public. Section 18 and 19 deal with access and increased traffic. And so because they're granting this variance, they're saying that's not going to be a problem, that you're fine to go ahead and make this decision as you wish. There are instances, say, if the subdivision were to be along a highway, where transportation may say, you know what, we can't grant that variance because it's going to mean that this parcel will require access off of the highway that could increase stoppages, be a safety risk, so for those reasons, that's why those sections are in there.
Go ahead.
Maria,
Amanda?
will Alberta Safety Code standards notify you when the open discharge system has been rectified?
Go ahead, Maria.
We will require the landowner to prove that they have changed the system. So it's likely that they'll put in a septic field. So then they'll just have to show that the existing discharge has been cut and capped. So they'll send pictures. or we'll get our inspection agency to, well, we get the report so that when they have a clean PSDS permit, then we know that that's been completed and it meets the code.
Seeking a motion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion as recommended, that the money in place of land be put on that policy.
Any other discussion on the application? Motion? Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, it's kind of a double win for the landowner. Like, I know where this subdivision is. Beautiful little place. And we've only got it valued at $100,000. And then to get put in reserve and leave it there for 20 years. If that's the way we do it, that's the way we do it. But it's a sweet deal for the landowner.
Good. Win-win. Okay, call the question on the motion. All in favor of Greg's motion? That is carried. Thanks, Maria, for taking us through those. Any other business anyone has? Post-agenda items, we had none. Any reason for in camera? Seeing no hands. Any questions in the queue? None. Any questions around the table? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting.
we're online, eh? Welcome to the January 16th regular council meeting and the first of 2025. I think we're all present here today, so there will be nobody excused from the meeting. We have minutes of the December 19th, 2024 council meeting that have been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions, or a motion to approve the minutes as circulated? Adina, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Are there any post-agenda items that we need to add to the agenda? Seeing none, a motion for adoption of the agenda as circulated would be in order. Kelly, thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Just with regard to that, the only delegation we have from outside is Cole Steinley will be coming from NRSC at 10:45. So any questions or notices of motion by council or questions online? Seeing none, we'll move right into our agenda item number 7, bylaws. Welcome, Mr. Mark Harbrink. Item 7.1, bylaw 2087-25, water and sewer, first reading. Mark, go ahead.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to be back here, reconvene with you. And it's been a work in progress anyway, but the water and sewer bylaw, including the drought plan, is presented to you today. Lots of changes, grammatical changes and whatnot to bring things of the entire bylaw up to today's expectations or needs of the community. And I guess I'm looking for council's input or thoughts on the bylaw, whether I've done enough to meet the expectations and needs, obviously that of fulfilling the requirements of the drought plan with the requirements of the Eastern Irrigation District standards to meet, and whether it kind of meets the expectations and whatnot of what the province has been working on for so long with drought and where we are with our region. And if there's any questions as to any of the other changes proposed in the bylaw as presented.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions? The bylaw, both with and without markup, has been circulated. Holly, please, go ahead.
Good morning, Mark. I was just looking at 10.5. Is that sufficient for a drought plan with the, I mean, it's very brief. It basically just says Matt can decide. That's all we need to say is a drought plan?
Well, I guess to answer that, the biggest part of this really is we rely so heavily upon what the Eastern Irrigation District is capable of doing. They do all the water diversion that fills Lake Newell Resort. Yes, we have our own water license. We could do more, but what is manageable and what is meaningful? How does it relate to perhaps some of the bigger water users in the region? So thinking about the management processes that administration has to go through in implementing and applying and monitoring drought and what council wants to be seen with drought and how it's managed in the county. This reflects really what the Eastern Irrigation District has in their bylaw. So trying to mimic that, as well as if you remember from committee of the whole meeting, there was all of the provincial documentation that I don't know how many hundreds of pages were included at that time, trying to blend the two of those to really look at it. But the meaningful part really is our biggest partner here, aside from the province, is the Eastern Irrigation District. That's where we rely upon everything. And that's really the grounds for that, for keeping it as it is presented.
Thank you, Mark. Neil.
Yeah, that's right. And I think all the legal documents, all the domestics are all signed with the EID. They don't even involve the county. So it's up to the EID to decide how much they're going to carve those back. All we can do is support them.
Yeah, and I think part of it is we've gone through drought. We've seen how the region can change and how we can get through tough times and whatnot with the available storage currently and whatnot. So I don't know if we need to go to some of the levels that we see other communities going to, not saying we're not accountable for water consumption and use, but I'm not sure that we need to go to the extremes of patrolling, having neighbors phone in neighbors because they watered at midnight when we don't have anybody around to supervise who's using water and how. Like it can become a very intense management thing that is difficult, and unless council wants to go there with more money to maybe manage those circumstances, this is what we recommend at this time.
Thanks, Mark. Matt, please.
Yeah, and maybe to just put council's minds at ease, what administration heard out of committee of the whole is that there's not a lot of support for being punitive with folks. One of the things we learned in our conversations with environment and our water service provider is when you let people know there's a shortage of anything, there's typically a run on that thing. As I read this point 5 where it says water restrictions in all or part of the county may be set out by any method and during any period upon such notice as determined by the CAO, I can let you know right now, in making that determination, your CAO will be coming back to the big table if we need to be or are pressured to be going down a punitive and monitoring path. So that is how this CAO will determine the approach.
Thank you, Matt. I agree with your perspective. Appreciate that. Any further questions, or someone have a prepared to move first reading? Mark, please.
Yeah, with moving first reading, we did identify a couple of grammatical things this morning that don't have any bearing or effect of how the bylaw reads. So option 2 as amended, which we would put in front of you for second reading, would be the preferred option today.
Okay, thank you for that. So some grammatical typos or whatever, but we'll see that at second reading. Someone prepared to make a motion? Neil, thank you.
Yeah, I'll make that motion as Mark suggested.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you, Mark. And let's move on to item 7.1.1, motion for bylaw, first reading for bylaw 2087-25. Welcome, Maria. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
7. What did I say?
Oh.
Oh, that's right, 7.2. I'm sorry. We'd have been way off. Actually. Now we're back on track. Thank you.
So this application is for bylaw 2088-24 to change the lands around the Bizano Airport from business, rural, and special parks and public service to direct control district. We have been working with administration from the town of Bizano to create a district that allows for continued and safe, effective operations to reduce hazards to air traffic, and also to attract compatible forms of development that encourage the economic and financial viability of the airport. So, like I said, this was done in conjunction with Bizano, and I think we've come up with a pretty great bylaw that will hopefully promote sale and development at the airport.
Thank you, Maria. Are there questions? Bylaw has been circulated. Any questions or comments? Oh, Kelly, go ahead, please.
Maria, are there, without reading line by line, I just have one question through the bylaw. Are there any restrictions on use of the hangars?
Okay, so there is provisions. The principal building must be established prior to the development of any other structure or use on the property. So when it comes to a building, the hangar is really for the hangar use. that needs to be developed. And then we can consider other uses based on what is in the permitted and discretionary use. We did talk a lot about, how flexible, how open we want this to be. But Pisano really wants it to stay as an airport with compatible uses, and obviously the county completely agrees. And sightliness was also a concern with Pisano, which is why shipping containers up to a maximum of 2 is in there. We had talked about self-storage, and that ultimately was decided to be left out. So there was a lot of discussion on uses.
Thank you, Maria. Any other questions? Someone prepared to make a motion for first reading? Ellen, please.
Yes, I'll go with motion for option number 1 for first reading for bylaw 2088-25.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I'm going to suggest that we move to item number 10.1. We have Mr. Cole Steinley with us this morning, and to expedite your time with us, we'll invite you to come for the NRSC report. Welcome, Cole. Happy New Year, and thanks for coming this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to everyone else. As you can see from the report, there's not a whole lot on here, and I was feeling really optimistic about that until Monday, since I submitted it. We've had a couple things pop up. Your favorite piece of infrastructure in Rolling Hills has developed 2 leaks that we found on Monday. The first one was at 3rd Street and 2nd Avenue, and that was fixed on Monday. It was a pinhole leak on a fused joint on a piece of pipe that they were able to dig down, find, and repair. So it was a quick repair, no needed outages or anything like that. So it was fixed fairly quickly. And the second one was at 3rd Street and 4th Avenue. It is being fixed right now as we speak. So those 2 popped up over the weekend or found them on Monday. Also, there was a leak out by Millicent on Torkelson's property, and it was on a piece that Syncor had done for the County of Newell water project, so it was under warranty, and they'll be taking care of that. So those 3 were relatively new and then weren't on my report, so I just wanted to let you know about those. The report itself, the lift station at Lake Newell Resort has seen some progress. So we were able to use Stark's Plumbing and Heating out of Medicine Hat to help us install 2 new check valves and 2 new isolation valves in that lift station. And they are installed and are working as should be, so that's a good step forward. Next part of that project is TCB is currently manufacturing some new piping for it. Once that's completed, we'll install that. And we're also going over the the bids that we had. I believe there was 4 of them for the electrical work, contractors to do that. So once we've selected what we think is the best one to move forward to that, that'll be awarded, and we'll probably work on the electrical upgrades in the spring. These aren't as important as some of these other mechanical issues that we were seeing, so it's good to get those mechanical issues out of the way first.
Thanks, Cole.
The County of Newell water project is going along. Excalibur are still completing their work in the Pisano area, and hopefully they'll complete their work in a timely manner, hopefully. And the EID has completed the 3 lowering crossing projects that were scheduled that I had mentioned at my last report, so there's no issues to report on them. And that is the extent of my report.
Okay, thank you, Cole. Any questions? Holly, go ahead, please.
How big was the second fix in Rolling Hills?
It wasn't overly huge, but they were just excavating this morning, so the extent of it, we won't know exactly what was involved in it, or how but as far as volume of water, it wasn't significant.
Okay, thank you. Dan, have you got a question?
Not a question for Cole, but I think now is a great time to do it. There's a meeting next week that I can't get to, and we need to have an alternate because I believe Ellen is away as well. So if anyone, we got someone?
Perfect.
You got your answer, we've got someone coming for you.
So that'll give us quorum, so that'll be perfect. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thanks for coming in for the report.
My pleasure.
Cole.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to suggest, as per advice, that we continue to 10.2, the Director of Municipal Services. Welcome back, Mark.
Again, so December was a relatively short month with the office closure and staff taking vacations, so shorter than usual, but officers issued 19 warnings, 8 tickets, conducted 7 investigations prior to the office closure. Don't have anything further to report because that'll show up in the February with the January report as to what was done early in the year here. The AFRAX shared talk group with the RCMP, as per our discussion at RMA with K Division, is now progressing rather quickly, so that's going well since we had some challenges with that, but we're prioritized in getting that implemented. Fleet services, the inventory count as per year-end practices was completed. Waiting to hear the report on what the final numbers were, but initially it appears to be rather good, and that's typical. So great to hear that we continue on that track. Team members responded to snow events as necessary. Other than that, vegetation management, gravel stockpiling, typical operations for this time of year. As you know, we've had snow, we've had rain here in January, we've had all sorts of stuff, so just continuing with what needs to be done. Contract 3 of the Rural Water Project continues. As of time of preparing this report, it was 60%, 66%. And to reiterate, the request for the contractor for substantial completion triggers the next steps in the engineer getting the water lines flushed, getting us to a state where we can get additional users turned on. So working through that still. Contract 4 continues in progress, and that will be wrapped up in the springtime with confidence. Dewatering inspections complete for bridge replacements that are scheduled here, so that work will have to take place before water gets turned on, obviously, in the spring. Pathway is under shutdown as previously reported, so you see I'm grasping at some straws. There's not much in my report, so I'll just call it done. Any questions?
Thank you, Mark. Are there questions? No questions? Someone prepared to make a motion to accept the municipal director? Go ahead, Ellen, please.
Yes, I'll make the motion to accept the report.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Now let's move on to item 10.3, the policy review of policy 053-25, the use of county roads and road allowances. Jeff and Maria, please. Welcome, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning. Road allowance closure policy. It's been a little bit of time coming. We've had lots of discussions about it, and in the interim, we've gone through a number of road closures. But I think we're here ready with a policy. I do have some minor amendments that I'll go through that I'm going to ask for council's consideration here. But what you have in front of you is proposed policy 053-25. It is going to replace 2 policies, 2016 PPW 022, which is the road allowance closure process, as well as policy 2021 PPW 064, which is a similar policy that deals with the same types of encroachments only onto developed roadways as opposed to the undeveloped road allowances. So we're always looking for ways to combine things, make things more clear and more efficient. So we decided to take these policies and put them together. Not much history because we've talked about this a lot through COW meetings and other avenues, but the revision of this policy, a major revision of the undeveloped road allowance closure policy, was spurred by a project that started back in the 2016 timeframe. Administration was directed to go out and identify the areas where private use is being made of road allowances, where there was infrastructures and other encroaching, and kind of get those in line through the road closure process and lease or alternatively sale. So if we look at the policy, 2016 PPW, that is now dealt with in section 3.1 of the policy guidelines. We inserted a table of contents at the front of the policy so we can really clearly identify where we're dealing with undeveloped road allowances, whether there's a use encroaching or physical infrastructure encroaching. That was one of the points made at the COW meeting, that the physical infrastructure encroachment should necessitate the formal road closure. So that is how the policy reads today. That was one kind of major theme that came out of the COW discussions. We did include as well the policy to ensure that if they're grazing or making other use where there's no physical infrastructure encroaching, there is a license opportunity for people to enter into to make use of that portion of road allowance. Just understanding and remembering that licensing doesn't provide for exclusive use of the road allowances. And also we've been able to work it that we'll be able to issue road licenses and kind of formally cover off that period that we know can take anywhere from 6-8 months to over a year to get the road formally closed through the process with the provincial government up in Edmonton and public hearings and so forth. So like I say, section 3.1 deals with undeveloped road allowances. Section 3.2 is the policy information from policy 2021 PPW 064. This policy was created back in 2021 by our lawyers for a very specific situation on a road widening project. It was created to allow the opportunity for physical infrastructure to overhang a developed road allowance. It was never exercised and never used because the Traffic Safety Act does mandate on road licenses that they do need to have a clause to be canceled within 30 days. So it ended up that the landowners that we were working with in that situation didn't feel that that provided them the comfort level to entertain having their infrastructure over the county road allowance because the 30-day clause. So it was never entertained at the time, but we do feel that it is still important policy to have both on developed and undeveloped road allowance. So we've kept a lot of that policy in section 3.2 and like I say, just went and combined it. You'll see that the section 3.1 from the road closure process policy, when you look at the marked up version, you don't really see where it came from because it was a total rewrite, and we've kind of mocked it up to follow the template of what that other policy for developed road allowances looked like. When you get down to section 3.2 in the marked up version, you'll notice there are some marked up from what the original looked like. And a lot of that is taking out specific references, you know, saying county instead of County of Newell, and just kind of making that policy more efficient down there. One thing I am going to just touch on here, there are a few amendments that recently we've made notice of and that we wanted to present to council. The first one's in section 3.1, section A, general point 2. It currently says road closures, road licenses, and leases shall be applied for by an adjacent landowner. We'd like to just limit that to road closures and remove road licenses and leases to an adjacent landowner. We have recognized some situations where we do allow use of the road allowances by somebody who may not be immediately adjacent to the road allowance. One of those situations is dairy farms most often have to empty their manure storage, and the drag lines, they will run some lines to spread on adjacent farmland and whatnot. So we just wanted to make that clear in policy. The next one is on page 4 of 7, point 8. And all we want to do is add in the end of that the ability to forward the application to council if there are issues heard. So just adding on to the end of that, if written opposition is received from adjacent landowners or utility companies, the CAO or designate shall forward the application along with all relevant documentation and responses to council for their consideration and decision. Just in addition to the end of point 8. And I'd like to make that same addition to the end of point 5 on page 6 of 7, doing the exact same thing, just in the situation for developed road allowances where there is maybe is opposition or it's not precisely clear, exercising the authority of council to make that decision on approving that. And then the last one we did recognize late is on page 5 of 7, cancellation and enforcement. We do deal with the cancellation and enforcement and re-entrance of new lease agreements in the Schedule of Fees bylaw. The Schedule of Fees bylaw is also where we set the rates for the lease values for road closures and leases. So we can have that discussion once we get a policy in place that we're comfortable, council's comfortable with, working with, and administration can implement. We can have that discussion around the Schedule of Fees bylaw. But what I want to do is just remove 6 on page 5.6A. I want to totally remove the county will send a letter, because the Schedule of Fees does a much more efficient job of having the automatic renewal of those lease agreements. On the second point, I would just like to amend it to say, should the lease agreement be canceled, steps must be taken to return the road allowance to its original condition by the applicant. Point C, I would like to just minorly amend and say all encroachments on undeveloped road allowances must be moved by the applicant prior to their cancellation of the road allowance lease. If encroachments are not removed, an order may be issued by the county. And then the last point, I'd just like to remove the word immediately and say new owner of the lands upon county receiving written notice from either the lessee or the new owner of the transfer of ownership and adjacent lands. We think that this policy as put together is going to provide a better path and help us communicate with landowners the threats, the risks for the county and themselves of doing things on public lands and you know, restricting access to those public lands. So we're now hoping, I know the recommendation was as presented, but hoping the council would look at the policy approval as amended, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there questions? Neil.
I think it's all really good. The Schedule of Fees is high on my priority list. We talked about that at the CAL meeting. So as long as there's a way to deal with that, however council feels we should, I think you did an excellent job.
Thank you. Holly, go ahead.
Hi, Jeff. I'm a little confused still about the road license policy in terms of where that comes or doesn't come, because some of the ways I understand it, I don't understand why we got a timeline. Can you just give me a little more background on that before I ask any more questions? In terms
Sure.
of what situations and, yeah.
Sure, I can provide a little background on that. So the direction that we got from the CAL meeting was that, you know, that was a lot of the discussion was, you know, what is the difference between a license? What is the difference between a closure and lease? We knew that, you know, a license does not provide exclusivity to the road allowance. So a license to occupy or a license that we grant for somebody, basically A, gives us the ability to charge them rent for using that land, and B, it gives us the fact that we know that somebody's using it and we have an agreement in place for the use of that to cover off any liabilities that may exist. At the CAL meeting, coming out of that, we thought, you know, somebody grazing an undeveloped road allowance is probably not a big liability, and that's not what we're going to focus on. But, you know, if somebody has a piece of steel trespassing over the property line to the sky, whether it's the end gun, whether it's a wheel move, whether it's a pivot stop, pivot center, whatever it is. That was council's direction, where you know that should be a more formal road closure and a requirement for a road closure, because they are having private infrastructure now, permanent possibly structures in the road allowance, and we thought, you know, that could create more issues, cause more liability for having it open to public, and we would probably prefer that they close it and restrict it so they do have exclusive use of that road allowance. The licensing does give us the opportunity again, like I say, because the road closure process is such a lengthy process with the approval to proceed, the public hearings, going to Edmonton for review and coming back, and the final approval, entering into the agreement. That initial lease is what we're going to use in the interim. So the day somebody comes in and says, hey, I'd like to close this road allowance, okay, we know you have infrastructure trespassing on the road allowance. We know that we're going down that road. Let's get into a lease agreement right now. So in the interim, this year, year and a half, 2 years leading up until that time, we've still got an agreement in place covering off some of the liabilities and uses and use restrictions that we might want to implement.
Okay, thank you. Holly, go ahead.
So why would you register then as a caveat on the land title if you see it being short-term onto something else? Like, what's the time commitment and the timing to register that?
The time commitment and timing is really at the discretion of land titles and where they're at. Right now, it's actually a quicker process than it has been in the past, and it's not overly intrusive. The licensing portion in one situation, you know, when it does have the ability for the physical trespass over top of the road allowance, and we want to go to the lease, that's going to be used as the bridge. But there are situations where it's only a use encroaching, where somebody's grazing cattle on the empty road allowance, where the lease could be for a longer term than that. If they don't have a building, a set of corrals, a pivot, stop, pivot, trespassing, then we would allow a longer term license under this policy. But we will educate people that a license does not provide exclusive right. That road allowance is still open to public travel. And that's kind of was another thing that came out of the COW meeting, is the education side and getting that information across to the public so they know what their risks are as well a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Holly?
So then it confused me because it said the road allowance for a period of 2 years or until such time zones is closed and leased, and that's under the road license policy. So do you need to split it out? In some cases it would be longer term? Because I was going, if it's 2 years, why are you registering a caveat every time?
Yeah, go ahead.
And under the road license policy, use encroaching, B1. It does say, so where there is infrastructure encroaching on the developed road allowance, a road license agreement may be granted for the use of the road allowance for a period of 2 years or until such time the road allowance is closed and leased. So if we've got somebody that comes in because they want to irrigate a section of road allowance, we are going to move to the road closure and lease, but in the interim, we're going to execute the license just to tide that over and cover off some of the, you know, issues that could occur in that 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 months. And we give it 2 years. We think that's going to be too long, and that's just why we say, or until such time the road's closed and we enter into the lease agreement. We didn't want it to be any longer than that because we didn't want people dragging their heels too much to actually enter into the formal lease agreement once the road closure was finalized.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any other questions? Holly, go ahead.
So somewhere in here, because I have read it, but it's blending, it does say that it can be use a license agreement for a longer time if it's for grazing or whatever. That's in there somewhere.
Yeah, the next point too, a road license may be considered for a period of more than 2 years if there is no infrastructure encroaching on the undeveloped road allowance or any significant alteration to the land occurs.
So will it be charged per year, per term?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, if I may. To be determined, there currently is no fee set in our schedule of fees bylaw for the license.
Right.
So that will be coming in short order. And we'll be interested where council's heads are at on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Jeff. We need a motion for 10.3.1, a motion for policy 053. Adina and then Holly.
I'd like to make that motion to approve the policy as amended.
Okay, 10.3.1, all in favor of that motion, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Do we carry on to 10.4? Let's move on to 10.4, the tender award for 2025 plow gravel truck replacement. Welcome, Terry, Mr. Terry Schroeder.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Anyway, I'm here to go through some pricing on some trucks. This is our fourth and last one that we have to buy for hopefully 4 to 5 years. So we kind of got them all standardized, which I kind of explained a little bit in here. So what I did is, like I did last year, I went to Canoe, and there's actually primarily only 2 vendors that provide the truck that we're looking for. So Tenco and Viking Sives. They both provided prices for me. They're both right around that $500,000. So what I did, go through them, they're pretty much identical trucks anyway. So what I did, make recommendations, we go with the Viking Sives. It's for $506,110. Pretty much the same as the truck that we got last year and the year before. So we're doing good. Last year we paid just a little bit under $500,000. 2 years ago, it was probably about probably about 60,000 last. I still remember 10 years ago paying about 350 or 400,000 for these trucks. So I'm hoping, looks like prices are stabilizing a bit anyway. So anyway, that's what I have presented for you all to consider.
Thank you, Terry. We have those, we've had an opportunity to look at that. Are there any questions or comments? Amanda, please.
Terry, what are you doing with the other truck that's kilometered out? What are you doing with that?
Basically what we do is we just go through a disposal program with them. So these trucks, we will, we usually keep one around for spare, the better ones, and the rest we will haul off to auction and auction them off. So we typically get around 40, 50,000 for the trucks after that much. So I don't know what it is now. We haven't sent one for a while. I'm hoping to get up a little bit more because, of course, the newer trucks are more. We see that lots now with taking stuff to auction because if the new ones are higher, typically the used will move up a little bit too, but they all go to auction.
Now, do you do anything to those trucks to increase the sale at auction, like putting on new tires or anything like that?
My theory behind that is we keep these trucks in very good condition because we use them with our staff safety program, road safety and everything like that too. So typically my story is, or our story is going to auction, that these trucks were used, they're in good shape. I mean, if the tires are really bad, we would be changing them out anyway. But we'll typically, these trucks, when we haul them to auction, they're used and they're in good shape. They follow all our safety programs, our maintenance program. They're in good shape. So most county equipment's like that, and we always do very well. Any county will do very well at auction sales with equipment. So they're in good shape. But we try to take pride, keep them in good shape, and sell them as such.
Thank you, Terry. Lynette, please go ahead.
So is this, that it says replacement every 10 years, is this right on time, or we've been pulling a lot of things up and moving things around, but is this on time for this replacement?
We're right bang on for replacement on this one. What happens a little bit, there's going to be a little bit delay because of delivery, so we might sneak a little bit more useful life out of it, but this truck is due for replacement this year. Hopefully we see the truck this year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Holly, go ahead.
I'd like to move that council awards the purchase of a plow gravel truck to Viking Sives Limited for $506,110 as per option 1.
Thank you. Any further questions? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. It's carried. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
go. Yeah.
Back to 8.1, we'll get Todd.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to suggest that we go back to 8 and 8.1, Agriculture Services Business, and welcome Mr. Todd Green. Happy New Year and welcome this morning. Always happy, yeah. Welcome.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm always excited to be here, and today I got to bring a guest. I've been telling Candace how hard you guys are on me, so don't feel bad about asking her some very tough questions and making her feel super uncomfortable. Just kidding. But I am excited to introduce you guys to Candace. As you are all very well aware, last year we signed a contract with the Alberta government to operate the CDC South facility and its lands. And we are happy to have Candace on board to lead us through that project. So she started 10 days ago, well, minus the weekends. And we have to kind of remind ourselves of that because Candace kind of got in the car while it was already driving. So we're trying to keep her on the straight and narrow. There's a lot of curveballs coming her way, but with that, I'll let Candace introduce herself a little bit to you guys, and then maybe you can ask her some of those really tough questions.
Great, thanks, Todd, and welcome, Candace, to the County of Newell.
Thanks. So I've been here, like Todd said, for 10, 11 days now. We've been out at the CDC a couple of times. My background has been in the last few years more in the veterinary world. But this CDC project is something that's near and dear to my heart as I worked out there from 2015 to 2019. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive into it, and I've really thrown myself in to try to figure it all out and see where we're at. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you for that intro, and I'm going to suggest that we'll all introduce ourselves too. I have been talking to Matt periodically, and I know that since sometime in the new year, everyone involved with CDC has kind of been, as Matt said, drinking out of a fire hose, and I have been quite complimentary. Everyone looks pretty good for drinking out of a fire hose, so that's all good. So Neil, let's introduce ourselves. Go ahead.
I'm Neil Johnson, Division 10 rep. I watch over CDC like a hawk, so watch out.
Welcome, Candace. Amanda Philpott, Division 8 Duchess.
Good morning, Candace. Ellen Unra, and I represent the countryside around the village of Rosemary.
Welcome, Candace. I'm Greg Screever, Division 5, Lake Newell Resort and Castles area. And Neil informs me when anything big comes up with CDC. So,
Good morning, welcome. I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from Division 6, the west side of the county.
Welcome again, Arno Dirksen from the GEM area.
You know me, we're thrilled to have you in that seat and one more mouth to drink from that fire hose, but there is awesome momentum going right now. So happy we've got somebody who can take calls and pursue everything as it comes, and it's not just Todd and me off the side of our desks. Super pumped.
Welcome, Candace. Holly Johnson, Division 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City, and I sit on the CDC South Committee, so we'll be spending some time together.
Hello, Adina Scandrup, Division 2, the hamlet of Tilly and surrounding area. And unlike these other two guys, I actually drive by the CDC South quite a bit, so I do kind of keep an eye on it.
Hi, and welcome aboard. I'm Dan Short. I'm from Division 1 Rolling Hills, and Todd tells a lot of fibs. We're really nice to Todd.
Hi, I'm Lynette Kopp, the Division 3 rep for Millicent Patricia areas. Welcome.
Thank you. welcome. Is there any other updates, or anything with regard to CDC that you want to add, or where are we at with that?
I think if you have time, we could probably tell you a few things. I don't know if anything's public in regards to, we're signing access agreements or anything like that. But yeah, so what
There's been lots of activity, and I think, sure, let's fill in some of the details. That'd be great. Yeah.
Oh, it's been unbelievable. I kind of thought we were doing good before Candace got here, but we truly were not at all. I don't even know. Candace is nice enough to include me in all of her introduction emails to all these wonderful organizations, and I bet we got 20 out at least. And we've met with 3 different organizations out there, and there's, I think we have relative commitment for about 40 acres already, and we don't even have the place. We have, interest in the greenhouse. We've had multiple educational institutions that are interested in utilizing the property, everything from storage areas to land to, yeah, it's truly is amazing how many people were looking for access to properties like this. It's just now we got to get down to the brass tacks of signing some access agreements. So it's encouraging because of course this is a new line of business for me, and I think a little bit for Candace as well on the management side of it for sure. So yeah, it's exciting.
Sounds good. Anything else? I have had a kind of a short notice opportunity to go up and visit with Ray Price last week, who the Price and Centera group were the last group to do production in the greenhouse and also some research, and I would say that was a very positive meeting, and there's a lot of enthusiasm to participate where there's opportunity, and also a lot of vision for potential partners as well. Also took a call yesterday from someone wanting to introduce us to someone from Red Crow College, which is at Standoff, interested in some of what we're doing. No indication of what that interest might look like yet, but I think very positive as well as I would say a lot of interest in the community from people who are pleased to see something going on there. And I think the thing that is interesting for us is this is a completely different business model than CDC South was envisioned and built for initially, where there was basically a government budget to cover costs, and then groups came in to do research as they were granted the opportunity. And then of course, in the ensuing years in between here, as you know, we've all been trying for some time to get something going, and it's taken a lot of time to get things moving. But that's been other people's experience too, and I think they're very much looking forward to the dynamic of free enterprise and partners coming in to be able to try to get some things done there, whether it's production and primarily research, and to see it's a different business model because we're here to cover the costs with the activity that happens out there. So that is quite a shift. I think it's quite exciting, and I want to be quite complimentary of the way you've all taken this on. It's good to see. There'll be more to come. Who knows where this goes? I think that initially maybe we were kind of low key on low expectations about what could come here. I have to say, from what I've heard out around the province and the areas that I hear from, is this might be a great next springboard for what can come at CDC South after a very rich and productive history. There could be a great future out there, and I'm pretty confident of that and excited to see where it'll go, so it's good. Any other comments?
Yeah, only that every conversation we have, we try to use positive language all the time, and we're always pushing forward. And luckily, we haven't beaten that positivity out of Candace yet. She's still very excited, so we're happy to have her. And yeah, we'll let her go back to her regular business.
That's great. Thank you. Welcome to the County of Newell and to CDC South. Yeah. Todd? Absolutely.
Okay, I'm continuing. All right. And we have the Fieldman report up first, right? And some more fun stuff. What's that? Yeah. Dan, you're supposed to say those things with your mic on. No? Okay. All right, well, the Fieldman report, it's relatively short. It always is in January because we don't have all of our summer programming going, obviously. But we are excited to have our new teammates. It's certainly, it's been good. You forget when you have a great team like we've always had with long-standing members that it takes some extra time when you have a new person to explain the process and explain why these things happen and how these things happen. And it's certainly added some extra adventures. We did, happy to announce, we completed the coyote survey January 6th to 10th. I didn't have the numbers when I wrote, but I do now. Our relative abundance index, which is what our coyote survey produces for us, in 2025 was 295. So essentially what we do is we put out scent baits. I think I've explained this probably before, but I'll do it again because I love talking about it. We put out scent baits on 3 different lines. One is from Tilly to Patricia, one is from Castles to north of Rosemary, and one is from Bizano to north of Rosemary. And along those lines, every 400 meters, we put out a scent bait. And at those scent baits, we count tracks for 4 days at every one of those. And then we take the amount of visits and the amount of sites. Whatever. There's math, and we get the RAI. So our 2025 RAI was 295. Our long-term average, we've been doing this since the year 2000, is 464. I shouldn't say this because we're involved in CDC, but research is not the County Ag Service Board's like typical avenue. So we miss some consistency in our coyote survey because we do it at different times a year because we need the snow. That's essentially every time we do it, we have to have snow. So sometimes it's beginning of January, sometimes it's February, sometimes it's March, and sometimes it's December. So the statistics are kind of off, but we figure that's pretty average number of coyotes. That's sort of what we would have expected to see. We've had some years where the RAI was over 1,000. So we're assuming we either had a really cold period with lots of great snow to catch tracks or whatever. We don't track that stuff. So anyways, that was long-winded about the coyote survey. Our 2024 CCIP program, we only brought in 1,068 coyotes, and our long-term average is over 1,400 on that. So I guess that's kind of why we thought our RAI would be a little higher because we didn't have as many brought in under the program. Seasonal jobs are going out. Looking forward to a bunch of our past employees returning, but also some new faces to learn, get to know, and enjoy their company as well. We have been busy in the shop with repairs and inspections, hoping to be done by mid-February on all of those. And then we have some construction going as well on a handgun spray truck and a rental boomless sprayer that was due for an upgrade. And I think I probably don't say this stuff enough. We appreciate Council's commitment to a well-maintained fleet. That makes our lives a lot easier in those busy 5 months when we don't have time to fix things. Our environmental farm plans continue to be popular. This is the time of year where it seems to be more popular, but there's a few different things that require an environmental assessment now, and that's made the EFP a go-to for producers. And Austin, sorry, I should have started with Austin, is just hoping to finish up his training in mid-February, so we'll have 2 people that are able to help out. I'm hoping that Austin can take the lead on those more than myself. Not that I don't like visiting with people, that's probably the most enjoyable part of my day, but just for time-wise, Austin should do a great job. We are planning on hosting a tree workshop a few years ago. That might have been 3 years ago already. We hosted that tree workshop downstairs. We are hoping to host it at CDC South. I mean, we've got a pretty nice place out there. Might be a great opportunity to introduce 30 or 40 people. And in working with Toso again, he mentioned we have a great arboretum out there, so we're going to have a hands-on field part of the day as well. So kind of a fun little Adventure, we won't have access to the full property by then because it's at the end of March and we take over on, or sorry, we assume some responsibilities on April 1st. But anyways, we'll make that progress. Pisano Fire Hall renovations are going well. I think we're nearing completion at the fire hall. We got backlogged a little bit with some contractors being busier than we had anticipated for the fall, but it looks like from Joe, it sounds like by the beginning of February, we should be down to the nitty gritty. So that's exciting. And then I think next week we're going to the ASB conference. The agenda looks pretty good. So hopeful for some good networking and learning. And I would entertain questions if there are any.
Thank you, Todd, for that report. Are there questions? Holly, please.
I'm also excited about the tree day. Do we have a potential date?
It's either the 24th or the 25th of March. Yeah, I think it's a Tuesday. 25th. Okay, that's the day. And Austin's just getting the posters set up now. I mean, I love listening to Toso, and I could listen to Toso for 4 or 5 hours, but we didn't know if everybody else would, so we're going to try to interject a few speakers between some topics. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ellen, go ahead, please.
Now, this tree workshop, is it to find out how you prune a tree, or what is it about?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. Right now, Austin's just hammering that out with everybody that's speaking, but we'll be talking about some different varieties of trees that survive the best here, some management practices for the longevity of your trees. It's a whole gambit. We have a great resource in Toso. He likes coming down, and he's well versed in all things tree. So he'll talk pests, different diseases that affect trees, drought and excessive moisture, how to handle all those things. It's well worth, for anybody that's listening, well worth coming to that day. And you get lunch, so that can't be a bad day.
That actually reminds me of a comment someone made to me in relation to CDC South and trees, and the fact that we've got so many trees there, and the opportunity or the possibility, prospect of doing research with regard to which trees survive best, which is important information for developers and that kind of thing. So there could be interest from outside of the region, Calgary area. That's kind of where it came from to me, that there might be opportunity out there to do that kind of thing. That's something that I guess unless you're in the business, you don't think about very much. At least I hadn't, but it's an interesting dynamic potential. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Holly, go ahead.
Just that the coyote population in the south is thriving. It's doing very well.
Okay.
Yeah, and you raised, sorry, I was supposed to mention this when I was talking. So the one thing that we have access to help producers if a predation event actually occurs is sodium monofluoracetate, a 1080 compound. The federal government and the provincial government are in a little bit of a disagreement in how that program operates. And so the provincial government holds the registration for the 1080 compound, and they are updating the label right now. So we don't have access to 1080. So if you have livestock and you see coyotes, it would probably be a good time to control them before you start calving, because we won't have any emergency predicide to help out with that this year. And Will has been reaching out to people that have used it in the past, just to try to alert them to the fact that we need to be extremely proactive this season. We don't anticipate having it for the calving season.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I just want to mention one other thing that I mean, in relation to the capacity we have here at the county, I mean, and also typically or specifically CDC South is outside of the realm of what we would usually be doing, but I've been really pleased to, I think our opportunity is there because at the management level, we have the capacity to think about, to manage things outside of the area of our core responsibility. So I say that in a complimentary way to staff and management. I think this is a great opportunity that we can that we couldn't consider if we didn't have the capacity and people. So that's what we're about. And thank you for your efforts on that, Matt, and all of your team. Todd, yeah. Great.
I just wanted to make sure Dan heard that. That was a compliment, Dan. That's how those work.
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
That's not the first time when I talk. If you can't have fun, what can you have? So we need a motion, I think, to accept the Agriculture Fieldman's report for January the 16th, 2025. Amanda?
I'll make that report, or approve that report.
All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Let's move on to something we've all been waiting for, the ASB Conference Resolutions, right? You're going to take us through that?
I would love to. And yeah, I assume because we had this brief discussion at the last council meeting, we wanted a little more time. So like Christmas morning, maybe Boxing Day, whatever it was, I assume we read them.
Pent-up anticipation. Yeah?
Well, I'm going to take some yes, no's, or maybes down so that next week when we do get to the resolution sessions, we'll remember our discussion. I did make some very brief notes about the therefore be it resolves. I don't know how in-depth we want to get, but we can talk a little bit at any time. Just wave and throw things at me to stop. So the resolution number 1, the drought and livestock agri-stability. The AFSC reevaluate the current weather mapping program and the drought monitoring system to include more heavily weighted data from weather stations within agricultural lands, et cetera, et cetera. This is not something that affects our area because all of our weather data comes from agricultural lands. But it does kind of make sense if an agricultural program is being offered, it would utilize data from agricultural land. And I think when we hear about this, this will be the first one we hear about. I do believe there's already been some changes that have been adapted up there. So we might hear that the first therefore be it resolved is not as applicable anymore. And then, sorry, the next therefore be it resolved is that AFSC report back on what they had said they were going to in 2022. And I don't necessarily have an opinion on that, but it's a good ask to hear what they did to the commitment they were talking about in 2022. So I was like a yeah.
I think
I should use more professional language, like
yes.
a yeah.
We can support that.
No, okay. Landowner rights for renewable energy projects. This therefore be resolved that Alberta Utilities Commission provide landowners with access to legal frameworks such as the Surface Rights Act, which includes compensation guidelines, environmental protection measures, and land reclamation requirements supported by strong enforcement mechanisms. And then further, that Alberta Utilities Commission create an independent tribunal to oversee regulatory compliance and handle disputes related to renewable energy projects. I think I would be interested to hear some opinions on this because I don't know if I'm the best one. And I think we have talked about this in the past, about having some sort of a guidance document for people to know what to look for in a renewable energy project lease agreement or contract.
And specifically something similar to what is available for other energy, like oil and gas installations through the Surface Rights Board, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts? Holly, go ahead.
I would think it makes sense. I mean, that's, everyone needs to have some backing. It's a lot of money, a lot of risk. I would think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think consistent with the discussions we've had over the years about this, yeah. Neil?
There's actually some pretty good documents out there right now. I have the experience of going through one. The more people you get involved, the more little boards you got, the more mixed up it gets. But if that's what the farmers want, I guess we should support it. I don't think they need it at all.
Thank you. Holly?
I think the difficulty is solar and wind. They're such different animals. Like solar is pretty much what you see, what you get. I think the wind is what causes people more angst, is my feeling.
Okay, I would assume that in relation to that, we won't be remaking the wheel where we don't need to, so, yeah.
I put a yes, maybe. I'll remember what that means when we get there next week.
It's not as scary as everybody makes it out to be. It's not the big bad wolf behind the door, neither solar nor wind.
All right, the next one along with similar lines is protection of Class 3 soils in Alberta from renewable development. So everybody probably heard that they were not allowing or were protecting Class 1 and 2 land from renewable energy projects. And therefore be it resolved as the government of Alberta include the protection of Class 3 agricultural lands, ensuring that these valuable agriculture areas not left vulnerable to renewable energy development, and that the government of Alberta continue to implement an agricultural first approach by allowing and prioritizing the approval of renewable power plants on already disturbed sites located on Crown land before considering productive agricultural land. And I know this, I always wonder, the wording is always interesting for me when we say things like vulnerable to renewable energy development. I think all land is vulnerable to other uses. We've been hearing that for 25 years, or I have maybe been paying attention for 25 years. So I thought that was a weird word. And then I just wonder if we are just protecting from this type of development, or if it would be all development. Maybe it's an industry subdivision or something like that. How do we distinguish which one gets to go on Class 1, 2, or 3, and which one doesn't? So those are my opinions. Thoughts. Not that it means a bunch.
You know, if this is actually implemented, it does infringe on property rights and the rights of individual landowners to do what they'd like to do, which I resist that too. So I don't know. Neil?
Yeah, that was well said. The Class 3 property rights, even in the EID, we've got 20-some thousand acres already taken up by oil and gas. Solar's looking for a couple thousand, and we're going nuts. But if they're going to do it to oil and gas too.
Greg, please.
Just a question coming from a non-farmer. How much Class 1, 2, and 3 land do we have in the county? Like how many people does this actually affect? And my concern is with irrigated land or land with water rights on it. Class 3 or 4 could produce crops more than a Class 1 non-irrigated land, dry land. So what's our thoughts there with Class 3? Because I think we have a lot of Class 3 land here. Is that correct? I don't even know.
Yeah, I'd say my knowledge of the exact acres of all those would be pretty low, but we have no 1 or 2 land here, I don't believe.
Yes, we do.
And I think even number 3, it would be a stretch for a good portion of our land.
Yeah, yes, we do.
We do have some number 3 or number 2? Okay.
We just tested some land last fall.
And it was a number 2.
It was number 2.
Okay, sorry, I thought.
But what I will say is that I think that we probably don't know what we have, because a lot of land hasn't been tested
for a long time, yeah,
or has been tested with a lens that was probably depreciated the land value. I think that our experience was surprised that it was number 2, and not ours necessarily, but from others who thought it was didn't think it was just because it was growing native grass, it wasn't high quality land. I don't think we know, because not a lot of land has been tested. I think people who understand land classification can make more educated opinions of it, but I don't know how much of that has actually been done. So I think we don't know, and I expect that we have more good land than we realize. But that's a subjective statement too. I don't think we know to answer it. Neil? Okay. Holly?
I would think we should vote against this one. I mean, it's also location, right? I mean, salt flats are a perfect place to put them, but if your salt flats is 20 miles from a power line, the costs don't make sense. So I think it's too restrictive. It's a nice idea, but I think it's too restrictive. I would vote against it.
I would agree. Lynette, please.
Well, I just think the wording that they're talking about is if the government is going to put restrictions, they think it just needs to include class 3 as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it seems like a moot point almost.
Okay, I don't hear anybody wanting to hang a flag on this one, right? Or I mean a green flag.
So I marked her down. All right, this is weed control in drainage canals. The government Alberta Environment and Protected Areas removed drainage canal from the definition of an open body of water under the pesticide sales, handling, use, and application regulation, and to allow municipalities that have control over maintenance of drainage canals to treat invasive species listed on the Weed Control Act, or those species elevated by the respective municipality, control the same species in roadside ditches under the notice to remedy weed problem. I think these are good conversations to open. That's we utilize the special use approval in our municipality to do things close to water and in different water or closer to water than you can under the Act. I think these are good conversations to open. And again, this one comes from a lot further north where they get water, and their drainage canals might run a little more often than ours. But our drainage canals seem to be very spring runoff oriented, so we don't have the same problems. But I think it's a good conversation to open with Alberta Environment.
So what's your recommendation?
Oh, sorry. I'm a support guy on this one, and as long as there's no major naysayers.
Good with that?
I always have to look directly to my right. You guys should move around. All right, sorry. The next one is the Central Contact for Weed Control and Agricultural Pests Act. I actually reached out to Northern Sunrise County on this one because I couldn't get the intent of it. I thought for sure that we would have good contacts for any leaseholder or landowner, and I'm not sure exactly why they don't, but it sounds like the companies that they have that are in the Crown land don't have the same type of relationship as we have with ours. So they have different land ownership, they have different leases, and they change hands a lot. So let's say like Torkson would change to a CNRL, would change to a Blacksburg, would change to a, that happens a lot, and they have a hard time getting a hold of them. So what Northern Sunrise County is asking for is for one department to always know who is to contact in the companies.
Lynette, please.
All of the sites, like oil and gas sites, are supposed to have their contact number posted, and it is unlawful for them to have the incorrect or non-answered phone on their contact. So that's, to me, seems like, I don't know, that's something above us.
And interestingly enough, that's what I mentioned to Northern Sunrise when I talked to them. We just call their emergency line, and you would be surprised how fast they pick up the phone, because that 1-800 number is for emergencies. I mean, not that Downey Brome on a well site is an emergency that day, but it sure gets them going. So,
and if you have the wrong contact, they'll get you the right
They
way.
find it right away.
Absolutely.
You get a lead operator right away.
Are you saying maybe not on this?
I'm a no on this one. It doesn't make any sense in my opinion.
Okay, I think we're good.
It's also their third resolution. Like some councils just spit out resolutions. What can we think of to make a resolution about it? Seems, I don't know.
Change is okay. It's just hard. This one is rural veterinary student support. We've talked about rural veterinary deficiencies in the past. I don't know if that's deficiency is not the right word, but just the not enough rural vets, especially doing large animal medicine. So this, therefore, be it resolved, the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade and Ministry of Advanced Education create a complementary program to the Northern Alberta Development Program Veterinary Student Bursary to make bursary funds accessible to veterinary students working in mixed and large animal veterinary clinics throughout rural Alberta, and that the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation and Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Trade institute a veterinary student temporary employment program for rural mixed and large animal large animal veterinary clinics to support the attraction and retention of veterinary students throughout rural Alberta. I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's something we've talked about lots, and I'm pretty sure when it gets to the next level, it's going to be turned down, no different than the last ones were. But it's a different approach, and I don't know if it hurts or not.
Greg, please.
Yeah, my issue with this is that bursary is to Northern Alberta, a Northern Alberta Development Bursary Program, Northern Alberta. I think what the essence of this is to allow it for the entire province rather than segregating out a certain area. So if that's what this resolution is trying to resolve, I'm for it, because Northern Alberta should not get any bursaries that we don't get, because we have a need here too. So that's my thought.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
I didn't see
Kelly, please.
So then would we put forward ask if it's a friendly amendment?
It already says we want to make it for the whole province. It's already there.
Yeah, once you get past all the descriptions of the departments, it does say to make the bursary funds accessible to veterinary students working in mixed and large animal veterinary clinics throughout rural Alberta.
It's just expanding an existing program, basically. Eh? Okay.
All right, the next one is roadkill carcass disposal. This one is therefore be it resolved that Alberta Environment and Protected Areas and Alberta Forestry and Parks develop formal guidance on disposal of wildlife carcass hit by vehicles to minimize disease transmission vectors that may pose a serious economic threat to the livestock industry, such as foot and mouth disease, and that Alberta Transportation amend the standard specification for highway maintenance to require contractors to maintain controlled access to carcass disposal sites, the composting of roadkill carcasses, and that the site be a minimum of 8 kilometers from an active livestock operation. So I reached out to our local contractors, our local highway contractors, and they asked me if it was okay to tell you guys what they do. And we are lucky in both the county of Newell and Cypress County have a Class 2 landfill, so they accept roadkill. When I was talking to the fella from Volker, I was astounded at how many roadkills they pick up. I thought we usually got a lot. We don't get a lot. They get over 1 per day. And it's a big area, but some areas he said there'll be 3 roadkills in 1 day. And I just like, how do you even find the time to pick up 3 roadkills in 1 day? If it's 10 miles even from your location, that's a couple hours, 3 hours of your day gone. But anyways, so this one, I think locally we have a solution for it. The landfills do accept them. The natural means of, allowing things to take their course naturally is also a good mechanism. So I don't have a lot of support for this one necessarily. And I think they may be able to provide similar solutions without another guidance document.
Right. Okay. Anybody? Oh, Greg.
Is there a problem with us having a class 2 accepting the carcasses? We do have a major livestock operation within 8 kilometers of that. Will this affect that at all?
No, and I guess I didn't reach out to Sean to determine what happens to them, but I suspect they're buried each night with the regular garbage.
Okay.
That was my, just, that's what I think happens. All right, we talked about coyotes a lot. So, and maybe that's why I was just priming you for number 8 here. Therefore, be it resolved that the Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation under Section 3 of the Agricultural Pest Act of Alberta establish a federal provincial cost-shared program to mitigate and compensate producers for confirmed coyote predation on livestock, and work with the Ministries of Forestry and Parks and Environmental Protection areas to utilize fish and wildlife staff to confirm the predation and submit confirmation forms to AFSC for payment administration. And that the Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation, Forestry and Parks and Environment and Protected Areas consult with Alberta lamb producers and Alberta beef producers to adopt their proposed changes to the current wildlife predator compensation program to provide more fair compensation when predation occurs. So currently, you can get predator compensation if your livestock has been taken by a bear, cougar, wolf, I believe eagle is even on there. So kind of large predator things. Coyotes are not on there. There's a few things I have concerns over. I don't know that we have enough fish and wildlife staff to administer the program like they're asking for here. Coyotes are a little bit easier to protect your livestock from than large predators. And there's open season on culling coyotes for landowners year-round. So I think they're just two different beasts. And I don't know how this program would ever be administered because I don't know if we have the staff to do it.
Did we used to have a program in Alberta that could potentially compensated for coyote predation? Or was it just...
Not in my time
it was
in
just
Alberta?
You could get some I think poison for them if you had confirmed kills. Yeah.
And that's the sodium monofluoracetate we were chatting about earlier.
Which is
Yeah.
gone now,
Yeah. Gone currently, but coming back, right?
Gotcha. Okay. Can we continue?
We're kind of okay with a maybe no maybe, ish, no.
I would say no. I mean, there's other ways to control coyotes. We shoot them all year. I mean, it's the government can't pay for everything. That's my greatest dislike with the resolutions. Some of them are like more money, and there's a line.
Agreed.
All right, I'm still on here. Some good background information on this one. It's well done. Non-matching funds for Agno, that the Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation waive the matching funding requirement through Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership to support Agno, Alberta Farm Mental Health Network, to ensure the farm-informed therapy program for agricultural producers continue to grow and is free of charge. The only thing I know is I don't know if I've never had the opportunity or the experience or the need to reach out to Agno, so I don't know everything about their organization. I don't even know if they're the only option for that service in Alberta. I do know that the service that they provide is a valuable one for people that require it, and we've supported it financially before. I don't see anything wrong with this necessarily. It's they're getting a grant. They're just asking that they don't have to do the cost sharing or the matching funding requirement for the grant. Does that make sense? So that was a maybe yes on this one. Probably more of a yes maybe if there was a scale. All right.
Great.
It's like south-southeast when the wind's coming in, or is it southeast-east when the wind's coming? You guys, I'm losing you. I got to be better.
would you like a show of hands? Would that help you? Because you seem to be looking for something more. Do you want to see
I'm just
hands?
making sure I'm not either going too fast or too slow. Usually when Dan starts nodding off, I try to pick up the pace a little bit.
I think you're doing good. Carry on.
We're almost through these. They're I do appreciate it. This one is the Farm Family Awards. Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation and/or the Alberta Association of Ag Societies work to ensure an annual Farm Family Awards program is available to all communities in Alberta with an established Ag Service Board. I think I like the thought of this. I really enjoy the Farm Family program, but I don't know who's best to lead it, whether it's the government or the Ag Societies. We're lucky that the Calgary Stampede and BMO have a wonderful partnership, and our only involvement is to try to pick a wonderful family to recognize. So I was a yes on this one, but I don't know who the best organization to lead that is. See, that's why I look around.
Lynette, go ahead, please.
I guess the question is, because it looks like it's been dropped in the north, the question is if Ag Services Board would actually want to be the one, Ag Societies Association, if they actually would want to be the one to do it. Like, I feels like this was a cart before the horse, you know, to see if they actually want to do it.
What I like about this is, I mean, there isn't a specific spend. It says work toward, which I think the significant thing at the Calgary Stampede is that it's supported by industry. Alberta Agriculture certainly is there regularly, and I don't know if there's funding for it, but I think it's, you know, BMO, Calgary Stampede. It's probably working to find a partner in the northern or the central region to take on the north half of the province, right? I don't see it as there's a lot of money being spent here. It's just a kind of facilitating getting something going, right? Yeah. Probably good. Yeah.
Maybe some advocacy for a partnership.
Yes, yeah.
It says, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says Northlands was involved in the past. How come Northlands isn't still involved? I mean, like, where did it, was it obvious that it wasn't supported, or people didn't, you know, why is it been dropped by Northlands if it has?
Well, I think Northlands folded, right? It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So what's the new, I mean, K-Day still happens, right? So what's the new organization?
I think they did it in connection with the fall. Northlands was a fall livestock and agriculture show, I believe. And so and it actually started in the north before it came to southern Alberta, I believe. I think go ahead, Lynette.
There's been a lot of messy stuff go on between Red Deer and Edmonton with like the CFR and then like Farm Fair and stuff too, all of that cattle stuff. So I'm thinking it's the whole thing is just kind of fallen apart. So this would be, hopefully, if they could get the Ag Societies to, you know, push it to come back.
Yeah, figure out what the most appropriate venue is to re-engage, I guess. I don't see a problem here. We can support this without going too far out on a limb, probably.
That works for me. Okay. No more questions? All right, agriculture education funding that the minister, therefore be it resolved that the Minister of Education work collaboratively with the Ag Service Boards, Rural Municipalities of Alberta, and Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation to establish a dedicated funding stream aimed for agriculture education. I don't know. I think agriculture education is very important. I don't know that it requires a dedicated funding stream. I don't even know if it has a funding stream at all, or if it's just part of what everybody does.
I would say it does through all of the agriculture schools, which are heavily supported by
That's
government.
True. That's
so
true.
What are we, I don't know what kind of a vehicle they're trying to create. Go ahead.
Which ag schools do you mean? Like, this is aimed, I think, for elementary.
Oh, this is?
Well, it talks about Ag for Life and for the going into the schoolrooms, ag education classrooms. I think it's not the older, it's trying to get kids younger to have ag education. That's how I read it. I could be wrong, though.
So you're thinking what they're asking for is a specific amount of money to be used for agricultural programming within each school, maybe?
Perhaps. I know I've talked to the high school and they simply say they have no time, no money, it doesn't fit for them. So I guess if the Department of Education made a focus of it, then it might happen. It certainly isn't now. So I think there's got merit to at least having them explore that.
Yeah, I stand corrected. My assumption was not what yours is, but I think it does look like it's for more youth at the younger level. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, this one could be a bit of a tricky one. You want the government to tell the schools and the administration that there's a set amount of money that you have to spend on ag education. Are they going to divide up their budgets and say this is how much you have to spend on CTS and this is how much you have to spend on humanities? Or are we going to leave the autonomy in the hands of the administration and the school boards to decide if they want to run ag programs or not? I'm worried that that's where this is going. They don't tell them now? No, they're not. They decide. School boards and the schools specifically decide the programs they're going to run, and they're given a budget based on the number of kids that are in the school. And if they can run the programs they want with the funding they're given based on those numbers, then that's what they run. If the high school wanted to run a bigger CTS program, it could, but it would be at the expense of something else. If it wanted to cut the CTS program, then it could increase its budget for something else. But if we're saying, no, you guys, you have an ag budget now, we're going to give you X number of dollars, but we're also going to give you X number of dollars that you have to spend on ag. We're forcing their hands and running their programs for them. I don't think this is going to ever go through.
Okay, Holly, did you have your hand up?
Well, the
Thanks,
wording
Dan.
is dedicated funding stream aimed for agriculture education. So I don't think, my thinking is it's not that you have to do it, but it's there to apply for. That's how I read it. Like, I agree, you can't force them, but saying, well, we want to do this, we don't want to do that, we want to do our CTS and ag education. Well, look, there's some funding stream. I guess that's how I'm reading it, because, I mean, every school's different, right?
Okay, thank you. Well, let's have a show of hands on this. Do you want to do that? Who supports this and who doesn't? I mean, maybe we need more information too. Is that?
Yeah, because if it's Holly's way, I would say yes. If
Okay.
it's the way Dan's saying, then I would say no.
Okay, let's put a question mark on this, and we hope for further clarification from Lac-La-Biche County when we get there.
Yeah, and there's 68 other municipalities going through these wonderful resolutions too, so there could be some friendly amendments and requests for clarification as well. Okay, well, we're down to the last one. That the Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction and Alberta Gaming Liquor and Cannabis Commission amend the Charitable Gaming Policies Handbook so rural nonprofit organizations are allowed to build reserves and generate revenues once again without affecting the ability to use the gaming proceeds. Further, that the Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction and the Alberta Gaming Liquor and Cannabis Commission suspend any audits until stakeholder engagements are completed and the amendments to the Charitable Gaming Policies Handbook are adopted. Everybody here has been involved in a nonprofit before. At one time or another, I'm sure you have had the wonderful luxury of being the casino chair, which is on like every nonprofit that's part of the board. Do you have an opinion on this?
Kelly, go ahead.
Like, this is heavy. Suspend all audits? Like, seriously? Interesting. I can't imagine the government going with this kind of resolution.
Is anybody currently on a board that has this going on?
Oh, an audit?
Yeah. 'Cause
An
my
audit happens every year.
Oh.
Yeah, so to suspend all audits, of course your bank accounts are going to grow.
Is that the audit for the gaming proceeds or the audit for the entire nonprofit you're talking about?
I'm talking AGLC.
Okay.
Mhm.
Greg.
And plus, it's to build reserves. So, I mean, sometimes reserves can get very large, and it doesn't stipulate, you know, for nonprofits to build reserves and not use the money. That's not the intent of what this program is for. So, I have some negatives on this one.
Okay, Adina, please.
For some smaller communities, though, it takes them 2 or 3 casinos before they have the little nest egg they need to even apply for grants and stuff. So that, in that sense, that's where it would work for them, is because, yeah, you have to use it as soon as, like, in the year that you get it, kind of thing. And this way they'd be able to hang on to it and build that nest egg so they can apply for grants. They want to know how much you have and what you're looking for, and so that way it would be helpful.
Kelly, thanks, Adina. Kelly?
Oops. So there are avenues that you can go. You can get approval to extend for a specific project. Like, say I was saving for a van, and a $30,000 casino is not going to pay for that van. If you have that use of proceeds in mind, you can apply to extend and carry over funds. Say you were building a building and you wanted to dedicate a room, that is over a proceeds, a 3-year use of proceeds. You can apply to hold that money for that specific use. So there are mechanisms in place for purposeful use.
Arno?
Okay, Holly.
As I read it, they have taken that part out. So you can no longer do it, which is why they want to suspend audits until they've done their stakeholder engagements. My understanding from reading it is that they pulled all this without talking to people. So they're saying, hold, do some stakeholder engagement, see how it affected us, because we need to do exactly what you're saying, and they've pulled that. I could be wrong, but that's how I read it.
This is 2020 handbook that they're referring to.
Have you read the new handbook? Because I sure didn't.
I mean, it's in my filing cabinet. Yeah, it's like this thick. But it hasn't changed since 2020. So that's my point, to your point.
I expect the audits have to do with the fact that they're hoping that there's going to be some changes made, so that, because if you were audited and you were non-compliant, you'd lose your funding, and then you'd have to get it back if they're going to. They're trying to have things changed in the interim. I don't know. Do we need more information on this when we get there too?
I think so.
Let's put it down for that question mark, and we'll hear from the County of Two Hills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I've never had the luxury of being the casino chair, so I don't know the ins and the outs of that one.
You take it. I can arrange it.
See, and I almost was scared to say that out loud because I figured for all the people that are watching online, I'll be getting a phone call to be on a board.
That's right. Okay.
And then, sorry, I lied to you. We have one more. It's the resolution for lobbying inclusion, that when specific resolutions secure lobbying opportunities for the Agricultural Service Board Provincial Committee, they in turn invite or consult with the sponsoring municipality to verify the resolution is communicated accurately and effectively. And I don't know why that would need to be a resolution. I'm not sure why a municipality or Northern Lights why they wouldn't be able to reach out to the ASB PC or their Peace Region rep and get some updates, but yeah. I think one of the benefits of having the ASBPC lobbying on our behalf is that we get updates when it's going on and we don't have to actively do it ourselves. So I don't know. I was like maybe no, maybe no, maybe.
This resolution coming forward might highlight whatever problem and fix it for whoever has the problem, because it's obviously a little one particular area.
It did make it through their regional conference, so maybe maybe we'll hear a good reason.
Okay, is that it, Todd?
I just have one more thing for you. Now that we're all so happy and it's into lunchtime, can I ask for money?
We need
Can I come back?
We need to appoint the two voting delegates for the conference.
Right.
Oh, my apologies. I thought we'd, yeah.
Is there volunteers, or how do we want to do this? I can't remember what we've done in the past.
Last year it was Amanda and I. Who else has done it on this term?
I've probably done it.
Adina?
Let's let Lynette be one of them, because she's never got to go before.
Oh, yes.
I'm good with that. Who else?
And Dan. Oh.
Adina? Okay. Lynette and Adina. All in favor, please indicate. It's carried. Thank you. And Todd, you had number 8.4. I'm gonna suggest we power on, because we got we'll deal with this, and then Shannon and Roberta.
All right, well, my apologies for talking too long today. So this is the last thing I have in front of you today. With the CDC South project, we anticipate taking over the grounds maintenance as an ongoing cost savings measure. We know that the capital purchase is an additional, and that the time spent will also be additional, but we feel like it won't cost as much as what the current contractor does. So before our seasonal crew left in 2024, we do this every year. We always ask them what the good, the bad, and the ugly was of the season. Not every suggestion is acted upon, but we do take them to heart. So the one thing that they said was that they have enough labor resources to do what they currently do with a little bit extra without an unreasonable ask to stretch out their workday. So that being said, one of the limiting factors was the mowing equipment. In general, we have the right size fleet for the projects that we have. Unfortunately, the CDC South project is a pretty big addition to those projects. And especially the timelines get pushed pretty hard when we have any sort of a breakdown with those mowing equipment. So the long and short of it, and I know you guys read this one very well, but we're hoping to that council would approve additional spending in the for ag services to purchase one additional wide area mower and one additional industrial ride-on mower for 2025.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Matt, you had...
Yeah, great work on the RFD, Todd. I think the only item that maybe isn't highlighted or in your face is the county will be billing the CDC South project back, so it'll be on a cost recovery basis. When I first looked at this, I was like, oh, okay, well, here we are spending money for CDC. Just keep in mind the revenue piece comes back, and there's also the additional benefit of providing a little extra capacity for the existing service level that from time to time with breakdowns sounds like a bit of a rub.
Okay, thanks. Kelly, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that council approves additional funding for the ag services to purchase one additional wide area mower and one additional industrial ride mower in 2025 with funding from Vehicles, Machinery, and Equipment Fund.
As per the recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you, Kelly. Any further discussion? Holly, please.
So I just want to clarify, this does not affect staff deployment. It's the same number of staff, just potentially doing it faster. Okay, thank you.
Dan, go ahead.
This mostly is going towards CDC South. Do I understand it right that the mowing services there up to this point have been contracted out? There's no equipment sitting there that we could just use that? We're replacing a contract and this would save money? Is that what you're saying?
I can't lie to you because it's not very nice. There is mowing equipment there. It is in different states of repair. But the service has been provided by a contractor for the last, whatever, 4 or 5 years for sure.
Okay, Dan? And then
So just a follow-up, maybe that's going to be one of the things that the province is promising to spend money on coming up in the spring budget?
how is that?
Infrastructure and equipment upgrades at this place? I don't know. We were told they're going to be spending a lot of money to fix stuff up out there. Is this part of that?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. I asked it first. Well, rewind a little bit. We do have coming to us agreements for use of equipment. The equipment at CDC South is aged. It's not the most reliable. The county does maintain a relatively new, well-maintained fleet because reliability matters in the scheme of things. And if I remember right on the answer to the mower question specific, because if we could have avoided spending some money, we'd chase it. There are 3-point hitch mowers out there.
Okay. Thank you. Good question. Any further questions? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion to approve the spending as recommended, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, everybody.
Let's move to item number 9.1, administrative business. Shannon, welcome. We'll work over lunch for a couple of minutes here. This will go quick, I think, right? Welcome, Shannon.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not near as long-winded as Todd. So this item is something we do annually. The application requires a motion to apply for the credit of the education and designated industrial requisitions. And at the same time, we look at the list and review it for tax arrears that are considered uncollectible. So that's what I'm here today, is looking for a motion to submit the application and to write off the balances.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Holly, go ahead.
Nope, I move option 1.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Roberta, welcome. No rush.
I'm hungry too, I empathize. So in policy, you should never rush, so I don't want to rush because it's important. But this one's pretty simple, in my opinion. You may differ with that. We first wrote the GIS policy in 2015 when we revamped GIS. This is part of the regular review, and it's been updated to reflect our growth and our understanding of GIS, and it's more strategic in its placement of what's in there. Definitions have been added. I'm sure you guys have a copy. So yeah, the policy has been reviewed by IT staff to make sure we're not overcommitting things we can't provide and that we haven't omitted anything we feel is important for the security of the county and GIS data. And then it went to management team to make sure they had no concerns about the responsibilities outlined in there, and now we bring it here to council. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there questions? Greg and then Kelly.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve.
Okay. Kelly, you have a question? I accept the motion, but a comment or question. Yeah, go ahead.
Just, Roberta, next time when you present it, could you indicate your changes? Makes our life so much easier if you have the red and the black showing where you make changes. A mark up and a mark down or something.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and I agree with the point. In this instance, Roberta, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a full rewrite.
It's almost completely written, but yeah. Yeah, no, and I totally agree because I don't like it when I have to do that either. There is, I think I've kept a few things about training, more or less like that. The structure is more or less the same as it was, but now it's defined. It never was defined before. But yes, I totally agree. But this was a major overhaul, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion to approve, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Roberta. I'm going to suggest that we break for lunch until we reconvene. Thank you. Let's reconvene our meeting. Three real RMA member visit. Matt, you've had some information on that.
Yeah, so the request came. They're looking to do a road trip again, and we're looking for council's preference there. We're thinking we could just send them our regular meeting schedule, and whatever day works for them, we would carve out a couple hours. I think that's about what they spent with us last time. If council prefers that RMA comes as a delegation, we could entertain that as well. They'd be here a shorter amount of time if they presented as a delegation. I thought the format last time, and it was my first time being involved, was nice, where it's a little less formal in council breakout room. So just looking for council's preference on getting back to our friends at RMA for a visit sometime this year.
I kind of like the idea of just giving them our dates, and then they can pick the ones that could work and figure out working around it, eh? I would maybe stay away from maybe that's not a factor anyway, but I saw something about June 6th. Is that rodeo week? I don't know that there's going to be other activity typically going on here. Yeah. Neil?
I like the informal bit too, because then each of us can mingle with their counselors or their people, and seems to work better.
Yeah, hopefully they'd join us around noon or so they'd be here for lunch. Yeah. Everyone good with that? Yep. Or any other ideas or thoughts? Okay. That's good.
Option 1.
Sure. Option 1. Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. Someone prepared to make a motion for option 1? Go ahead, Holly.
I will make a motion to pursue option 1.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you. (9.4), Ariana, you need some information from us regarding RMA annual convention?
Yeah, that's right. All right, so RMA Spring Convention, the dates are March 17th to 19th. All the hotel rooms have been booked, so I'm looking if anyone is not planning to attend, you could send me an email. Let me just go through my RFD here. There are some EOEP courses offered. There's 3 this time, so land use planning and development, strategic planning, and corporate planning and finance. So it's the 3rd one that most of you have not yet completed. I marked on the RFD whether you've completed or not. So if you decide you want to take one of the courses, we'll get you registered for that and update your hotel room. And the other thing is determining which meetings with ministers you want to try and pursue, including a list of topics.
Great, thank you, Ariana. The courses, I guess people can deal directly with you outside of the meeting. And what do we need or think that we need with regard to meetings with ministers?
Try to get the Minister of Transportation.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see if we can get with transportation. Any others? Topics-wise, we'd have lots to fill there. We have the overpass at Highway 1 and 36, the JBS expansion or project, also Highway 873 as a priority to widen. And we could tell them about our truck route, I guess, which is just information. But anything else? Go ahead, Holly.
Do we want to try with Rebecca Schultz again? I mean, we just had a Zoom with her. And
yeah, we should.
I think it was November, was that December, but it might be good to touch base with her again in regards to what's happening with the Water Act and water review, whatever their water engagement, I think is the proper term.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? I think that's good. We can always expand it if we think of something in the next couple of weeks or something. So, okay, thanks, Ariana. Okay, number 9.5 is a request for a letter of support from the Brooks Housing Society. Ariana, do you?
I forgot my name was on that too. Yes, we received a request for letter of support from the Brooks Housing Society. This is for they're looking for grant funding for, I believe, I don't know if it's phase 2 or they're expanding phase 2. The RFD, the previous letter of support, we sent them one in 2007 and 2022. So they're just looking for support from us for more funding for expanding affordable housing.
Okay. That's probably something that we can support. Someone might want to make a motion that we, Lynette?
Make a motion for option 1, that the County of Newell provides a letter to the Brooks Housing Society signed by the REEV in support of their efforts to develop additional affordable rental housing units.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you, Ariana. From there, we go down to committee reports. Oh, here, I've got it right here. Not enough. City of Brooks Recreation and Parks Board, Neil and Greg, can you fill us in, please?
Yeah, I'm old chairman, become existing chairman, which, but I did say, you know, if anybody wanted to do the job, that would be great, because that would be a good change, but no one really took the opportunity, so I'm chair again. Let's see, some of the things that we talked about, it was quite a short meeting, but how do you explain do we explain that policy? The city has put forth a amended policy for their grants that they give out for users of their facilities, not necessarily all recreational, but all their facilities. And yeah, it just seems to be some things in there that didn't quite line up with what we actually do at Parks and Rec. I mean, we have a certain amount of money that we are allowed to give out, up to $500 for different user groups within the county, city, and area, that we can just approve. That'd be like swimming passes and use passes and things like that. Very small things. Anything over $500 goes directly to the Brooks City Council for approval. We can say, they come to us though for a letter of recommendation. But what they indicated there is that we were getting some mixed messages from the councillors and the administration as to what the procedure is now. Like it sounds like they took away the $500 away from our committee, and that all grants have to go through the city council, but that's not how the council members perceived it would be. So there was just some miscommunication or misinformation. So we'll get that ironed out at our next meeting. So other than that, I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, let's move on to PEP, Palliser Economic Partnership. Holly, go ahead.
So PEP had a quarterly meeting in December. The newest member of PEP is ACME. You might think ACME is not really in our area, but only certain areas have RETAs. They don't fall in an area that has their own RETA, so they're welcome to join with ours. They're quite interested in the infrastructure benefits that could come and some economic benefits. So they're actually quite a happening little place, ACME. We talked about, I think I told you about the Alberta Trade Mission to FoodX Japan 2025, which we are taking part in. And the Ag Committee voted for Arno to attend for PEP. To that, I thought he was the best person. He has experience in that from his previous job, so that worked for PEP. The Local to Global Conference is being moved from the March date just because of some ministers' availability and some government events that are going on that makes it not possible for some of the people to be there who need to be there. And the infrastructure is going on, as is housing. Barb was just meeting with someone yesterday who was looking for a place to develop some rural housing. So lots of good things going on in PEP, and she's a very busy lady. And that's my report.
Any questions? Okay. I think coming up to that Japan Trade Mission, we'll have some more discussion about that. I think it's FoodX that that's being attended there, which is it's basically getting ready to potentially for PEP to have a booth there with representatives of people who have things to market, like food products from Alberta and from the region. So I'm not exactly sure what the format's going to be, but I should know more by one of our next meetings where we can maybe talk about, I think if we're going to go there, I'd like to have a list of potential, know what in the region might be something that could be marketed there in the future that would be eligible to go to Japan. But we won't have any of that nailed down by then, but just to have some information, and then when we come back, we should know the process a little better. Holly, go ahead.
So perhaps it'll give a little more background. Barb was able to go last year because someone who had a spot became ill. So Doug Jones said, does PEP want to come and just kind of have a look at it? So Barb did, and then she got connected to a lot of the people in the food industry. So she was able to do some training on it this year. She took, I think, 4 or 5 different food products from the area and was able to have them looked at in terms of if it was interesting to Japan. So some they said, well, we have that already, or the packaging isn't right, or this isn't right. So trying to get an idea of what they're looking for. So they're going as an observer this year, as Arno said, to kind of gain more knowledge with the hope that next year we'll start being able to actually take products there and make it an actual economic benefit for our area.
Right. Okay, let's move on to Safe Communities Committee. Greg.
Yeah, so Safe Committees meeting met last week. And this is the Brooks. Brooks and the county takes part in this too. Our department, our safety department. Anyway, some interesting stats. They did their year end, and it was interesting. 1,868 tickets were written in the city of Brooks, resulting in a total of $498,439 in revenue. I thought that was really quite interesting, and then they asked, well, what does the county bring in? I have no idea. So, but that's maybe an update that we can get from that, because I really don't know what our revenue stream is from that. So we have some work to do in that department. So yeah, there were, another notable was 44 summons for no insurance, resulting in $3,000 each. So it's interesting money, and really 44 vehicles without insurance being stopped is a concern. So, but that's the report. There was 137 grass letters sent out. So Matt, if you could mow your grass a little bit more, that would be great.
In answer to the question, how many fines or ticket revenues does the county plan to bring in each year? Well, 2024, we budgeted for 27,500 because we've taken the message from this table that we educate first and then hit people with the monetary education. But last year, 25,920, so 25,920 is what we've got. But if you want John and Randy issuing more tickets, just say the word and we'll get them out there.
Thanks, Matt. Any other questions for Greg? Seeing none, go back to Grasslands Regional FCSS. Holly.
I just wanted to make a short note that we are taking applications for Citizen of the Year and Junior Citizen of the Year. And actually, this will be the last year it's going to be in this format. So we hope to make it kind of a banquet to celebrate all previous recipients. We haven't had a lot of recipients in the last number of years, and we're thinking that we need to try something a bit different. But if you know of any deserving person who has not yet won either Citizen of the Year or Junior Citizen of the Year, I encourage you to nominate someone.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Nominations? No. Neil, Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Report.
Okay, it's a saga.
Saga, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Our landfill withdrew from Sewa 2 Fridays ago. We had some emergency meetings over the weekend. They have since joined again, and they are the first municipality, whatever you call them, jurisdiction to actually decided to go full bore and build a facility at the landfill in the county of Newell. Since then, other landfills, i.e. Wheatland, have withdrawn. No, it's all good. Sewa's still in a good position, but if you read the bulletin this week, Ray outlined it pretty good. We could have a facility going here in 2.5 years if everything goes good. And our landfill is 100% behind it. They have the money to get it going. We should have just done that right off the bat. But anyway, it's a good news story if you're into energy from waste.
Thanks, Neil. Are there questions? Seeing none, I think that concludes our committee reports unless someone else has a committee report. I'm going to take us back to item 9.6, requests for functions of council. Does anyone have any? Past or future? Matt, please.
Just remind council of the email circulated a few days ago. Looks like your official opposition is requesting or inviting you out to hang out with them in Calgary. An invitation to a conversation on agriculture and the Alberta economy, February 6th, which is a council day, so you guys can't all go, from 9 to noon in Calgary, if that's anything you want to entertain. I hear delete.
I think it's good to, in today's political world, to keep those channels open, whether we're UCP or NDP. It really shouldn't at this table matter all that much. And you never know what's going to happen next election. I don't think it would hurt to send a couple people there just to let them know we're alive.
Volunteers? I don't see a problem either. I mean, if it's a conflict with council day, that might be an issue, but in terms of information and keeping people educated, that's a good thing. Any volunteers?
It's a day after the ADA conference, so already some of us are in Calgary for a couple of days, so I don't want to stay any longer.
Great. February 6th, we've got a little, well, not much, but. Great. Can we just leave that open with you, Matt, if somebody is able to go, 1 or 2 people, just to get in touch with you, and then those channels, or we can set that up. Is that reasonable? Go ahead, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you wanted to make a motion for it being a function of council for the first 2 councillors who show up in Matt's email inbox or on his phone, that's it'll make it easy.
Yeah, that's right. If Lynette, okay.
I'll make that motion for what Matt just said.
To be a function of council. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. There's a, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kelly. No, that's fine. No, go
We received an email from Halo inviting us January 27th. They're announcing a new chapter for Halo Air Ambulance, and your presence will make this milestone memorable. That's what we received. Is it something that we need to send somebody to, or is it something we'll wait and hear about later? That's all we got.
We have cow the same day, according to my calendar. Is that correct? And when is the cow meeting expected to be blank? Do we know, Matt?
The CAL meeting can be a live conversation. If council is amenable to it, you could look at canceling CAL. The agenda items we have in mind to put in front of you, which we can deal with some of these in a regular council meeting anyways. Return rural home care is an item off the strategic priorities chart. I think there's a little bit of work that's already being done on that file. We were going to talk about society self-insurance options. I'm not confident we're going to hear back from our insurance guys to have the information that would make meaningful use of that time. There was a third one, joint services terms of reference, but pardon me, following our last joint services meeting, I think that's going to be a longer conversation. CAOs are going to get together and put a couple of options together for committee to consider. And we could talk about some of those things in camera. So administration is open to the idea of canceling the January committee of the whole meeting if that's amenable to council.
So I messed up. I read the top of the email. They want our RSVPs by January 27th. The actual event is February the 11th. So at 3:30. The doors open, yes. So my bad. I just...
Should we send 2 people to that, maybe?
February 11th at 3:30 in the afternoon.
The volunteers? Amanda? Holly? You? Okay. What were you thinking of going?
I'm fine. I got joint services.
Okay. So if we could have a motion that we send Amanda and Holly, and if one of them can't make it, that we find a replacement and we have 2 people going, is that reasonable?
Or one's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll make a motion that Holly and Amanda go to this Halo announcement.
It's a function of council, okay?
As a function of council.
Yeah. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Are there others? Holly.
I got an email this morning, I don't know who else did, about the, on the 24th of January, Alberta Health for their Shape the Way. It's at the Heritage Inn from 12 to 2 on that day. It's because I was registered for the engagement. That's why I got the follow-up. I think, is this the one you went to, Amanda, wasn't it? So you have the invite as well, I take it? Okay. Came at 9:15 this morning. January 24th from 12 to 2 at the Heritage. It's an opportunity for your voice to help shape the government's approach to refocusing the healthcare system. And I am not saying that I need to go. If someone else would love to go to that, and I'm just bringing it forward.
Okay, what's our preference? Some people interested to go? Lynette?
I'll make a motion that that's a function of council. It seemed like Amanda was interested.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a question, not on this one, but on the next one.
Okay, thanks. All in favor of the motion that that health meeting be a function of council? That's carried. Thank you. Go ahead, Ellen. Sorry.
Now, the water engagement that was in Lethbridge on January the 8th, was that a function of council?
Yes. Yeah. Neil?
What about that Tilly School Advisory Council meeting that some of you are going to tonight? I think it's good we show some interest, and they did invite our whole council. I don't know whether it's a place where we should be or shouldn't be or what we're getting into, but
Can you just fill us in on what that's about? I did get a call from Julie Jenkins about it as well.
what it's about is they want to rejuvenate the high schools and get right into the education system in hopes of rejuvenating the smaller towns, Tilly, where the other schools at, Elcoma, Rolling Hills. They're a pretty determined group. Julie Jenkins is a pretty vocal supporter of it, and like I say, I got the email, I gave it to you guys. I think a couple of you are going for sure that are affected, but I think it's worth being there. Just like they're talking economic development, they're talking a little bit more than just high schools here. So I would, let's see what else other people have to say before we make a motion. Tonight?
Was that a motion, Neil? You making a motion for that to be a function of council?
I didn't think we were finished discussion, but if we are, that's a motion.
Sure, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, you got it.
You're moving that attendees, that be considered a function of council.
Yeah, for the whole
Okay.
council.
All in favor, please indicate. Opposed?
Yes, you
Okay,
did.
that's carried. Thank you.
I sent it to you.
Any others? Seeing none, I think we can move on. There are no post-agenda items that I'm aware of. We have the information items that are before you there. Are there any questions in the electronic media? Seeing none there, we'll move on to in camera. So let's move. Oh, Kelly, go ahead.
One item we didn't finish conversation on is the January 27th cow meeting. Are we good to cancel that, or, because now's the time?
Right. Neil?
Didn't we have at least 3 councillors that have already indicated they're not going to be there? Like that, if cow means anything at all with economic development, things like that going on, I think we should all be there. 3 is too big a bite.
Yeah.
So I think it should be canceled till another day.
Do a cow meeting, you want to herd, so.
Is that a bad joke?
So we're good, schedule-wise, we're okay to cancel. Does someone make a motion that we, go ahead, Holly.
I'll make a motion that the January 27th Cal meeting be canceled.
Okay, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried, thank you. And I think I would now entertain a motion to move in camera. Greg, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried, thank you.